Hi, I'm Dani Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of Penn Voice. I'm joined today by Melissa Stevenson Diaz, who is the city manager for the City of Redwood City. Melissa, welcome back.
Thanks. Good morning.
So there's probably not a person in San Mateo County or in the Bay Area that isn't talking about housing and congestion and transportation. So tell us some of the things that you are looking at in the City of Redwood City to bring a diverse platform of housing to our community.
Thank you. So housing has really become one of the top concerns of our city council. They actually added it to be one of their top priorities in the last couple of years. And there's just been a number of steps that the city has taken to really be in a leadership role on increasing housing and security, home security for people who are living here. So some of the actions that they've taken in just the last couple of years have included a housing impact fee. So when commercial development happens, now there's an expected impact to the community of workers now needing to have a place to live in order to work in that commercial space. And so that's a part of the fees that developers now have to pay.
So they pay into a fund.
Yes.
That then eventually, and at the end of the day, that fund will be used to either support or help develop other housing in the community, that whether it's workforce housing or whether it's a housing community that you've deemed is appropriate for the city.
Right. So it can help us with things like preserving housing. So, one approach can be buying existing housing stock. Some of our multifamily buildings that maybe are at risk of being gentrified and having really steep increases. Those can be purchased with those funds, and we can help make sure that they become legally restricted as affordable housing, or brand new housing, which is also important for our affordable housing stock. So,
and as you've partnered with Mid-Peninsula Housing or Habitat for Humanity to then build more housing for, or as you said, rehab other properties through this housing impact fee.
Yes. So the fee is great. It's an important tool. Another tool that the council has recently approved is to have an inclusionary housing, which means that when there's a new market rate development, the developer has to produce a certain number of affordable housing units at the same time. And that's really valuable because it really speeds the process. It can actually result in units being built much more quickly than if we get the funds and then we have to find a location to buy and then actually construct. So having both of those tools is important.
And what's the inclusionary percent for a new housing development?
It's 20%.
So, and it would be on site?
Yes.
Okay.
Additionally, there's a big effort that we've just completed in concert with the county called the Home for All initiative, where we really try to have a broad variety of perspectives in the room at the same time to talk about housing needs and housing impacts. It's been very impactful because we've learned more from residents about what they see as priorities for housing, and also we've been able to share a lot more information about the many services that are out there that help people stay in their homes, as well as the options that the city has going forward for helping produce more housing. So out of that effort, we think we have even more that we can do to help people understand ways that they can access services, that they can, say, build units on their own property if they happen to already have homes in Redwood City, and ways that they can support more housing that's appropriate for our community that will help make sure that our kids and people who work here can also live here.
Right. And I know one other program that I felt was intriguing was your accessory dwelling units.
Right.
There are so many properties within the city of Redwood City that are have large lots, and so might be able to do what we call these ADU units, or fondly called the mother-in-law or granny unit.
Right.
And you've adopted the state standard, so it's been a little bit easier for folks to come in and apply and do a construction application for an accessory dwelling unit.
Yes, and we're seeing a big uptick in interest in doing that, whether it's for your own family member who you may want to eventually have live near you, or it's for the purpose of helping somebody else in the community be able to live in the community where they work. I think there's even more we can do, and so we're working. Again, one of the outcomes of the Home for All program is ideas around how can we make it easier for property owners to understand how easy could it be to actually have this construction happen? What sort of revenue could be generated for them so that they can make sure that that's an investment that makes sense for them? So that's an area that we think we can really have more impact going forward.
Right. And what are some of the sort of creative ways in which you're thinking housing for all in the future?
There's a lot of dialogue happening kind of all over in partnership with different employers in the community as well as housing partners. And so there's ideas floating around how could we help make sure that teachers have a place to live and be close to the students that they serve. Is there a way to really focus on housing for nurses? And I know you're familiar with some of those efforts. So there's a lot of energy because I think more and more people really see how this is affecting them, even if they initially weren't really excited about having new development happen in the community. Almost everybody at this point can really point to a family member or a friend or a colleague that's really been harmed by our current high housing costs.
And one great example is at Kenyatta College, the property up at Kenyatta College off of Farm Hill Boulevard. They had excess land and chose to build some condominium units to house their teachers and professors there at Kenyatta College. So I see where you're going with some of the other school properties and or hospital properties that may someday look to the city and say we'd like to bring some housing onto some of our campuses or sites.
Yeah, and that's a brand new concept for these organizations. And so this is where working with other partners, housing partners, to help them see and envision using their land differently, that's really impactful. So we're glad to be a part of that.
Right. And now I'm going to move from housing to a new environment. The state approved, obviously, the use and distribution of cannabis in the state of California, and Redwood City has adopted its own sort of set of what it will and will not do within this area. So tell us a little bit about what the City Council adopted a few months ago and where you are.
Yes. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey for our state and still a journey for a lot of our country. And so, just backing up a little bit, after medical marijuana or cannabis became allowed, Redwood City actually allowed for delivery of medical cannabis. And that's important to share just because we were a little surprised to realize how popular that had become. But we learned in the last couple of years that we were receiving hundreds of deliveries a day without any community impact.
Right.
And so that started to shape our thinking, and when the recreational use of cannabis was voted on by the state, and in fact 2/3 of voters in Redwood City supported that proposition, it started to help us think about, is there a way to allow delivery of adult use cannabis that, again, could be done in a way that wouldn't really have impacts on the community, but would be supporting what the voters said they wanted, which was the ability to have access to this. And so we went through a pretty extensive process of working with stakeholders, of learning best practices from other communities. And through that and that whole listening effort, the City Council has ultimately decided to allow delivery of cannabis from specific locations in Redwood City. And that really would be limited to a small number of industrial sites that are significantly away from any services for children or youth. And to allow the sort of incubator of baby cannabis plants or cannabis nurseries. So we don't have a lot of vacant industrial land.
Right.
It's kind of hard to imagine we're actually going to become a giant capital of this activity, but it is an effort to try to meet community interests in making sure that it can be allowed in this community in a way that we can know who is actually operating above board. And then it can be done in a way that's really avoiding any community impacts. So we're right now taking applications from businesses. Some could open, I would say, as early as this fall. And we'll be kind of working closely with those new businesses to make sure that they're good business partners in our community.
And I think the thing that we want to make sure that everyone understands, this is not retail operation.
Correct.
This is an industrial operation. This is distribution.
Yes.
So the end user, it's still delivery service. So the end user is basically at the door.
Yes.
And it also is a revenue generator. You have levied and taxed this service, this distribution service to the business. So in the future, we'll see if that then generates some revenue, as we were talking about needing to generate revenue for the city, if that in fact becomes a great new source of revenue, because it's structured in a different tax base than it is sort of sales tax.
Right. Yeah, and I would say it's in process, actually. So the council's approved fees that make sure we recover all our costs of regulation. So that's not taking away any money that would otherwise go to services to the whole community. But we will actually need voter support this fall in order to levy a tax on the business activity. So we're expecting to seek that in November.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us and telling us all about what's happening in Redwood City with housing and obviously as we grow and learn more about cannabis and distribution. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And I will see all of you next time on Penn Voice.